Hello family, it's the Culinary Gets a Shukran button, and today we're back with another video. Becoming a chef is a very personal journey with you and the food that you want to cook. So in order for you to start cooking, you need to basically love what you are about to do. So today I've got 7 things that you need in order for you to become a good chef. So without this, you won't be able to basically, how can I say, get started. So let's dive right into it. So the first thing that you need is a notebook and a pen. When you start with in whichever place you start cooking, you need to write down the ideas that you get, because you'll get stimulated from everything that you do basically, and you'll be inspired. And through that inspiration and stimulation of your mind, of you tasting different things and watching different stuff, you will have to write down whatever comes to your mind, So you need a place to write it down, and you need a notebook for that. And also, why you need a notebook and a pen is because sometimes you'll get recipes from different chefs that you work with, and you will have to keep them down. It's not a thing of like you're stealing, but you're not actually stealing because you're an artist. You basically art steal most of the time, but then it's like we get inspiration from other people. So you write that down, and then you can probably improve the recipe, make it better than how the person gave it to you, or you can use that inspiration for the next dish that you're going to make basically. Tools. You need a knife. So I have here about 5 items that you need, so that's like part of the knife situation. So you need either a chef's knife or a utility knife. That's gonna be like it's your arsenal for cooking basically. Without a knife, you won't be able to cook at all. Like how are you gonna cut your vegetables? Are you gonna break them apart, tear them apart? So you basically need a knife. You also need either a paring knife or a fruit knife. So this is a knife that you're going to use for small items like vegetables and small fruits, to cut them up. Or also like with, basically if you want to get into some smaller parts of a bone or somewhere when you're filleting something, you need a small knife to get into the tight places basically. You also need a filleting knife. A filleting knife you'll need it because when you are basically working with items like fish, you'll need a knife that's very flexible to go through the corners and the different angles the fish may have without damaging the flesh of the fish. And it makes it easy, and it's fast because it's much sharper and it's flexible, so you need that. The one other thing that you need is also a peeler, because most likely if you were to start cooking, you would probably go to a station where it's not too much stress is put on you. So maybe work like in the cold kitchen, or probably work with like vegetables or stuff, maybe entremete, because there you get to work with vegetables, and that's where you can sort of like build your foundation as a good chef, getting to know how to work with fresh products. Point number 3, you need recipe books. Yes, you do need recipe. The wrong button, like how will I be able to afford a recipe book if it's expensive? I remember back then when I started cooking, I was about 8-9 years old, because I was a very tall boy. I was really tall, and I looked much older than my age. Yeah. So one thing I used to do that I remember basically was in the newspapers they used to have recipes. There was a chef, I forgot his name, from Namibia. He had a very famous and successful restaurant in Bantu. They used to have recipes in the newspaper, the Namibian newspaper, all the time. So I would always collect those recipes, and during school my mom used to buy files for us for school. But then at the end of the year, we don't need the files anymore, because we have to use like new files again. Then she would always like buy new files for us. So the old files that I had for school, I always collected my recipes in there. So those were recipes from magazines, from newspapers, magazines like the Bona magazines if you're in Africa. Bona is the only one I remember. There are so many other magazines that were South African magazines. and they had recipes in there, so I used to collect those stuff. And there were so many other books where you would find recipes, and I would always collect them and try out the easy recipes that I could, that were cheaper and the ingredients that we could afford. If you are able to afford a recipe book, I would recommend that you get a book with that talks about the foundations of cooking. A book that I would recommend that I always also wanted is one of these books. It's the Book of Escoffier. So the Escoffier cookbook is a book by Escoffier, Auguste Escoffier, who was a French culinary, and he basically grew up in France, started cooking there, and then he ended up in the UK, and that's where his career basically boosted and became what it is. So he's basically the father of cookery, modern cookery. So I'll talk about the history of food in my next following video also, and I'll also make another video based on knives. 4, I would say, is your will and your drive. So you need to be willing to work the hours. You need to be willing to do the dirty work, which is, I don't know, most people start in as a spuler, which is a cleaner. But that was like in the olden days. But in modern days, I wouldn't say that you would start like as a cleaner, but you would probably start in the cold kitchen, which is very chill. But you do have like a lot of work. Basically, I would say it's quite a lot of work, because you get to work with starters, you do salads, you do all these small things that you work basically with very fresh ingredients and all that. So that's where you would start. So you start at the low bottom. I'm not saying that the cold kitchen is the bottom, but you would start as let's say a commis or something, and then you basically work your way up to become a good chef, basically, if you work in a big kitchen. So you need a will and a drive, and your drive should just be something that basically makes you wake up in the morning to be like, I want to go in this kitchen and go cook this. It can be maybe you wanting to master a recipe or master a certain technique. So you need a will and a drive in order for you to get started in bake. 5, you need a mentor, which 5 and 6 actually together. You need a mentor, and you also need a kitchen where you'll be cooking. So basically, if you are from a wealthy family, obviously you'll have a kitchen that's fully equipped, and your parents or whoever is sponsoring you can basically buy you ingredients or buy you whatever you need to make your food with. So lucky you. But then if you don't have that, you need to find a kitchen where you'll be working. So basically, where you'll be working, that's where you'll basically find your mentor. It works hand in hand. So once you have a kitchen where you're working, then basically the mentor is the one that's going to be directing you and guiding you in what to do. They would want their things in a certain way, and you do it the way it's supposed to be, you know. So you basically need a mentor, and a mentor just helps to shape you into a better person, into a better chef that delivers. So nobody becomes a good chef unless they were a good cook. And a good cook is somebody that knows how to follow the recipe to the exact point, and also follow rules, basically. So if you cannot do that in the beginning, then I would say it's going to be really hard for you to basically advance into the following levels of becoming a chef, because you get to deal with a much broader perspective of tasks to basically complete. The last but not least, this is going to be a very controversial point, I would say. As a starting chef, you need to have an ego. Yes, you need to have an ego. I know so many people are gonna bombard me, be like, yo, that's so stupid, that's so crazy. But don't get me wrong. The point is, having an ego is basically having pride into what you can do. You know yourself, you know what you're capable of. There are people who are really good at spicing. There are other people who are good at doing things. And there are others who are good at basically everything. Like literally, they are good at everything. It's a rare breed. But having an ego basically just helps you build your foundation and your mental capacity for you to be able to protect yourself and defend yourself in times. Because especially if you work with big teams, it gets a little bit hard, you know, because people are trying to let each other down to show that they are better and all that. But the ego, you only need that for a certain period of time when you're starting. But as you become better, like as you go in like 1, 2 years, 3 years, let's say 2 years, 3 years upwards, then you need to sort of like start working your ego and calming it down, because literally it will teach you to become humble, to become a person that's able to be taught. Because once you get to know certain parts or certain things about cooking, you will feel like, I know everything, you know. And that's where you have to start, you know, killing the ego to be like, cool, we need to calm down now and we need to go further higher. Because the ego just helps to boost you, you know, to give you that start to be like, yeah, I can do it. It gives you that motivation and it gives you that drive and that spirit to just work hard as you can. So yeah, the ego, you have it for a certain period of time and then you kill it and you start going further and further. Because with the ego, in the long run, it will be difficult for you to basically be able to learn from other people, because people are going to be there to be like, this guy has a big ego, you know, he doesn't know how to, maybe, for example, let's say you don't know how to make a certain thing or do like a certain technique properly, but then because of your ego you feel like, I'm good, nobody can tell me anything or tell me what to do, you know, then nobody would actually want to work with you and you would end up switching jobs like nobody's business. Yeah, it's gonna be okay, but then your CV is not gonna look good at all, you know. And if a chef has to look at you and be like, why do you change jobs like every 2-3 months? What's wrong with you? There's something wrong with you. So you need to stick to one place, you know, and also learn, because the longer you stick with one place, you get to learn a lot of things, and you can apply that in your future. Not to say that you're gonna work forever, but then you can basically become a better chef and start creating something on your own. That's it from my points of what you need to become a great chef. These are 7 points, and these are points that you can basically go with when you're getting started. So you can let me know in the comments down below if I missed out a point or something else that you feel like is supposed to be part of this list, and we can chat about it in the comments. Follow me on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at rombuttonfoods.biz or just rombuttonfoods. I am the culinary gangster chef Rombutton, and you're always got to have it. I'll see you guys in another video. Adios.